Hello, wonderful humans. Thank you for tuning in to the Triple L Network. And if you could take 7 seconds out of your day and do me a big favor, jump over to the Shopify App Store. We just launched our Founders Dash, and we would love a review from you. Thanks so much for being so awesome. Enjoy the show.
Our general benchmark is if you're an e-commerce brand in the US, you're not marketing internationally, but you have a good setup. Low shipping, good tax treatment, local currency, etc. 2 to 6% of your revenue should be international without you doing anything.
All right, folks, we are back for your favorite D2C podcast. I have my partner in crime, the new supplanted Vitamin Shop RIP, exits the chat, Walmart enters the chat, the kingpin of Avi himself, Ashvin Walwani. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Good, man. Always a great intro.
Yeah,
First the day off, right?
We got to spread the love. So today we're going to be doing some really interesting stuff. We brought on Darwish of OpenBorder, and we're going to talk about international expansion. Usually when you're marketing, there's two kind of headwinds that you have to deal with. It's either efficiency or scale. A lot of people can find efficiency, but then the challenge is like, where do I spend more money? So we're going to talk about, hey, maybe if you finally pinned the States and you're hitting some saturation in the States, what are some other ways that you can do that and some international expansion there? So Darwish, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. It's nice to be here.
Of course. A couple little fun things. Have you guys seen the new Yeti ads? Did you like them? Not like them? They're kind of OG I can share. Well, I guess if you guys are listening to this, they're essentially, here, I can share the screen too for people that are actually on the YouTubes, but I'll narrate them a little bit as well. 1 second. So they're just kind of this OG, they're all over Austin as well, but just this kind of OG before and after. And I think it's actually a pretty good look. I'm pretty into it. Yeti's actually an Austin company, so it's a little near and dear to my heart, but I kind of fuck with it. I don't know. I think it's kind of gangster. I actually know this guy. This is a friend of mine. His name's Caleb Kerr. I know the guy that actually shot this ad, which is pretty cool. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's one of the things that I think is so fascinating is in a super highly commoditized vertical, such as, coolers and things of that nature, brand really matters. And I think Yeti has absolutely nailed the brand. They really hit the anglers hard, the fishing people hard, and then they started to expand out there. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. Kind of, corduroy's making a comeback type of thing. What is old is new. So something to go chat about there. The other interesting thing is Alex P., one of my brand crushes. She's fantastic. She had some really interesting brand positioning frameworks. So something called white space, oppositional, reframing, grassroots, professional, status, quality, true luxury, price to value, price. So that's something that we'll link in the show notes to go check out. And then the last kind of little latest news is a really interesting tweet from another really good friend of mine, Nate Poland, digital native. So Callaway bought, so for people that don't know, Callaway is a golf company that make clubs, bags, et cetera, et cetera. They bought Topgolf. They bought a 60% share in 2006. And then in 2020, they actually bought the whole thing. And their last reported quarter, Topgolf represented almost 40% of their revenue for that quarter, which is pretty crazy to me. And so I think this is going to be a bigger trend where we always talk about community, but also in the sense of like build a church that people can evangelize at. And there's nothing better than, buying a basically driving range where you can go check out these clubs. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
Why do you think it was a good move for them to buy Topgolf specifically?
Well, from the top looking down, it was a really interesting place to get people that weren't necessarily into golf. So a really nice on-ramp to golf. And it also gets equipment in people's hands. So it's almost like a pseudo Apple store. And then there's also really decent margins at the business because you're selling alcohol, booze, food that's super marked up. So I think it just net made sense. They got a pretty good deal on it. And I think that the product alignment in terms of, I love these little halo buys where it's like not necessarily like your actual product, but on the periphery that you can then use that to accelerate product usage. And so, oh man, I just bought a new Callaway driver. What are you going to do? You want to go drive range? Well, why don't we go to Topgolf? You want to try it, Ash? And then you can do that. So I think that's what gets me really interesting in the sense of like, so for example, like if Avi had a big, crazy expenditure that they wanted to do, like I think for you guys buying maybe like a yoga studio or something like that, or some semblance of like a juice bar that was powered by Avi supplements or something like that, where it's not necessarily a core Avi thing, but then you can accelerate the uses of the product. That's at least how I see it. Where's your head at?
So if say we were to buy like you said, a yoga studio, or even like maybe even a smoothie shop, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like that demo would use Avi. But now if you have Callaway that buys Topgolf, the person that goes to Topgolf versus a golf course driving range, are those the people that are going to shop at Callaway?
Yeah, I think so. And again, I think it's more so about getting product in people's hands. And supposedly Callaway has, great products. And I think that is, and again, it's also a nice on-ramp of, oh man, I'm not really into golf. I'll just come hit some balls at Topgolf. It'll be fun. And so you start to expand your TAM. And then if you can get that person into golf, well, they're probably going to buy Callaway clubs because that was exactly. So that's where I think it makes sense. And it's not, again, this huge cash sink, because it can almost run essentially break even by itself. So my big thing, Ecom Cowboy. So Bruce Bolt's on an absolute screamer, and I think they should either buy or build like essentially the Topgolf for this with batting cages, where it's like you can. So that's the same concept there, right? Like it's not necessarily, but then you have all these cool things. Because the other thing is you can run really cool events, because they have a lot of really awesome influencers that like like Yankees, like real people. You could even do a home run derby there. Everybody's has the gloves. You can have this really awesome thing, and there's also essentially a store footprint as well, where it's almost like a pseudo retail store, which is really interesting.
It's also a massive real estate play too, if you really think about it. Right?
Yeah, 100%. But that's more of the hedge than the strategy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. 100%.
Is that 40% of revenue? 40% of their golf sales happen through these doors of Topgolf, or the Topgolf business itself brings in 40% of revenue?
Topgolf. So here's how it breaks down. Active Lifestyle brought in 21.86%. Golf equipment, the stuff they sell, brought in 38.23%. And Topgolf brought in 39.91%. It was their biggest part of the revenue mix.
So this means that this Topgolf itself as a retail format is just working really well. Like putting that in more and more cities, it's just like an activity people like. Golf is.
Yeah.
Yep,
exactly. So I think it was just really fascinating, because again, like the acquisition that they made is actually, I mean, if you combine it, it's not selling more, because they have Active Lifestyle and golf equipment, which is around 59%, but it's more than their breakouts of Active Lifestyle and golf equipment. So
yeah,
Chris Hall, if you're listening, open the batting cage. Hello, beautiful people. Thank you for tuning into the Triple Whale Network. This is brought to you by the Founders Dash, our new forever free plan. You can get all of the awesomeness or most of the awesomeness of Triple Whale. So you're going to get a 12-month look back. You're going to get net profit. You're going to get access to the iOS and Android apps, so you can have all your metrics in real time anywhere you want. All you got to do is go to triplewhale.com/founders dash and install the app today and get ready to ride the lightning. Enjoy the show. Anything else? I think that was it's been a little bit of a light week. We did do, I wrote a big, super long essay on purchasing moments. We'll link to that. I think that's kind of interesting, but it's also a little bit of a shameless plug. Let's get into international expansion. I'm really excited about this. Yeah. This is something, I haven't really dipped my toe into this yet. The only really thing that I've been on the periphery of is using Australia as a counterweight to seasonality in the States. Yep. If you have a really seasonal product, see if you can penetrate Australia to get this kind of, again, counterweight to when it's winter there, it's summer here, and vice versa. But you guys have a really interesting tack in terms of what you're doing over at Open Border. So I guess, Darwish, first, give me the pitch on Open Border, and then second, let's talk about how you guys have been using it, Ash, in terms of trying to get more markets online. Because the other thing is there's a lot of nuances as you penetrate these other markets. Just a tiny side digression, we were going to launch pretty heavily in Australia, and we didn't realize that there was So there's something called localization where you can basically take languages and switch the languages into these other languages. And Australians obviously speak English, but there was so many nuances around that type of English and culture that we had to really almost localize it for that. So we ended up, having to make a big roadmap. But anyway, with that being said, Darwish, tell me about Open Border and international expansion.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. I think I'll start maybe with the story of my last business, Pangea.
Yep.
Started that back in 2018. Pangea's entire premise, unlike many direct-to-consumer founders who oftentimes solve this personal pain point that they have of a really important, cool problem that they saw, ours was very market thesis-driven, which was we saw this big opportunity for e-commerce brands to be a lot more international than they already were. If you look at all the macro numbers, the U.S. is 20% of global e-commerce in 2018, it's less than 10% today in 2023. Every major consumer conglomerate, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, LVMH, Estee Lauder, these are all global businesses. Like, they make their money by buying a brand in one country and selling it everywhere and blowing it up more in the same country they bought it in. But international is a big part of their growth. And so our view is like, okay, well, if all these brands are just building their business off Facebook and Google, those brands should be able to go international faster and easier than these like big physical retail kind of companies. So the premise of Pangea was we're going to build the rocket internet for direct-to-consumer brands. We're going to incubate 10 brands a year. We're going to launch them in fast succession. They're all going to be global really quickly. And kind of what we found was we got 2 brands to scale really fast. They got much bigger than we expected. We hit the 9-figure run rate mark in 3.5 years off of Lumen, which is a men's skincare line, and Meridian, which was an intimates grooming product. But interestingly, 50% of our revenue in that business came from international. So this is international D2C, Amazon, and we were shipping from the US. We had warehouses in 5 different countries. We localized our website. We kind of went through the entire internationalization flow and have thought a lot about what types of brands can go international, et cetera. Got to a place where we realized we can't start brand 3 through 10. We barely survived launching number 2. If we did number 3, you guys wouldn't see me here today. I wouldn't be alive. And so that was the realization that brands are really, really hard, really powerful, but you got to pick a few and do them really well. And so we said, why don't we actually go and power all these other brands that have amazing products, amazing product market fit, and that could go international. You'll see these mega trends, like water bottles was one example of it. I probably in the last 3 weeks have talked to 3 9-figure water bottle brands. It's like, it is a mega category. And to say that's not a global secular trend, everybody in the world is going to buy more water bottles. Everybody in the world is going to do less plastic. We know this. Cool. Who can capture that? This is where digital brands can be really at the forefront. So that's the premise of Open Border. We built a ton of stuff internally across logistics, shipping, warehousing, tax, product compliance, optimizing your UX on your site to feel like a local experience. Where we're like, look, let's go productize that and sell it to brands. And so we've been doing this now for about a year commercially, predominantly through referral-based stuff. We work with mainly 8 and 9-figure e-commerce brands. Yeah. And that's how we met Ash. Ash was one of our customers, and an awesome case study. But I'll give you a few benchmarks and I'll let Ash tell the obvious story. Our general benchmark is if you're an e-commerce brand in the US, you're not selling internationally. Let me rephrase, you're not marketing internationally, but you have a good setup, low shipping, good tax treatment, local currency, et cetera. 2 to 6% of your revenue should be international without you doing anything. If you're below that, you're probably something in your setup is wrong. Okay. And then with marketing, our benchmark is 20 to 30% of revenue can be international with the English language alone. This is taking US ads, pointing them into different countries.
So like Queen's countries kind of thing, Western Europe, et cetera.
Western Europe, Benelux region, Nordic countries, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Dubai. These are the big areas.
I didn't even think about those. Yeah.
A lot of expats there.
Yep.
And so you hit those regions, you'll get into that 20-30% range. If you're below 10, you're doing something really wrong. 10 to 20 is like, okay, something you do okay, but you should be able to get to 20 to 30. 30 plus usually requires non-English. Yep. And sometimes you'll find brands just get way better traction abroad because there's less competition. And I think Avi may have been in one of those scenarios. They can kind of chat their story, but we've seen time and time again brands launch international with us, and they go from 2-3% of the revenue being abroad to 20, 30, 40% in 3 to 6 months. And so that's the growth lever we're trying to let you unlock for very, very little effort from your side from an operational and tax perspective.
Oh, I love that. Before you jump in, Ash, because I want to hear your whole little spiel there. What you said, there's kind of some heuristics or parameters you're looking at for brands that this might work for. What is that? You said something kind of like a little bit about economics, maybe some logistical sophistication. Can you just give me kind of a little bit of that? Like who would this really actually work for, and who is this not necessarily for?
So you can start shipping internationally from a smaller scale. It's usually hard to find good prices, and we tend to only work with 8-figure and 9-figure brands. But like I would say, as soon as you have like that, when you hit that like $10 million revenue mark, and you're growing well into it, you've gotten to a place where you have push marketing working. That's the important portion. So like my theory is like if you have push marketing working in a region that speaks English, you can take the same thing and with low awareness, get that same or better return on ad spend in a new region. And so that's kind of like what you need. It's like, when do you have that flywheel working?
Yeah.
And that flywheel working, someone like us can make the operations and logistics very easy for you, but it's really, do you have unit economics that you like? And if I came to you and said, would you take 2x of what you have today? If your answer is yes, cool, do it internationally. You're going to get more. If the answer is no, then you need to go fix that first. That really is the core of it. We do lightweight products are much easier to start with, but there are ways to do heavyweight stuff too. So yeah.
Is there, one last question, and then Melwani, please take the stage. Is there a gross margin that you really look for? Because I got to imagine that there has to be some semblance of unit economics at work here, because you just the logistical costs, shipping margin, shipping and handling can start to eat up, especially if you don't have like an overseas distributor and you're shipping everything from the States, et cetera, or am I misreading that?
So there's two buckets. So there's two worlds, right? We do both things. We can ship from North America to the rest of the world for you, and that works pretty well for lightweight products. And then as you get scale, if you're lightweight or you're heavyweight, we can actually move your goods into distribution centers around the world on your behalf. So you integrate with us. You have a global 3PL network. You have taxes and import product compliance all taken care of by one party. So it's like you're working with a distributor, but you're getting the economics as if you control your own marketing and your own brand. So that's the idea when you go into local. But gross margin wise, the way you should think about it more is like shipping lightweight stuff from here overseas will maybe on average be like 2x what it is in the US. So if you're paying like $5-6 to ship in the US, maybe paying $9 to $12 on average to ship internationally for lightweight stuff. Heavyweight stuff, if you move it local, you're going to get similar pricing. So gross margin wise, what actually matters is, are you able to get your LTV CAC to work out, your gross margin LTV CAC to work out? If you're a 40% margin business, your AOV is probably high enough to where, cool, you still make $200 an order. If you can get that economics to work out, likely you can get the same thing internationally, because ultimately CAC is just a measurement of market demand. So if people like your stuff enough, you're going to get low CAC. If they don't like it, you're going to have high CAC. So if they like it low enough, the CAC will be lower than your gross margin, margin contribution. And so that's the math that we kind of do. But you can work with a 30% margin business. It's just, it has to have enough contribution on that order that gives it enough room for you to actually acquire customers, which they got to figure out in the US. And once they do that, it means they solve the demand equation at some level.
Yeah, no, I love it. Okay, Melwani, take it away. I see you itching over there. I like the sweater, by the way. Is it cold there? Dude, I can give you some degrees.
It's a t-shirt.
Damn, the drip. I ordered one of those heat boxes. Have you seen one of those? I'm really interested in it. It's like these cool like designer clothes, and it's like this mystery box. I don't know. I heard they suck, but I got on the Instagram ad, so I'll report back. But it's supposed to arrive today.
You get got a lot.
I get got a lot, dude. Ever since Lex left, and I have no more governors on my financials, I need to start texting you whether I should get it or not. Okay, that aside, my Instagram indiscretions. Let's talk some international expansion, Avi style.
So I think I want to also kind of set the scene here, right? And I think brand owners and operators can maybe relate to this, where when you originally think, okay, U.S., like especially a brand like Avi, it's a commodity, right? Collagen, protein, like the example is always, I can go to Amazon and get it for half the price, right? Now, when you think about that, you think, okay, well, can I maybe expand into international, right? Whether that be Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, like the main, like, high populated English speaking areas, right?
Yep.
And you're thinking, okay, they don't have a lot of this stuff over there. I have product market fit. Let me see if I can expand out there. There's a couple of issues here, right? Shipping is very expensive, right? For us. And our 3PL probably just checks within one carrier to actually get some type of shipping cost. Two, it's way too high for me to take it on for the customer, so you're passing on that cost to the consumer, right? Then on top of that, places like UK, they'll have customs duty charges, right? Like VAT in UK is 20%, okay? They're used to their prices including VAT.
Yes.
We're used to seeing sales tax after or during checkout, right?
Yes.
So now for us, it's like, okay, well, here's the price. All right, you've kind of accepted the price. Now you get into checkout, and now you're seeing $20 to $30 shipping charge, especially on a product that's anywhere from $30 to $50.
Yeah.
Plus 20% for VAT, plus the duties that end up happening when you get the package over there. Okay, so it's not the best experience for the consumer because you might get some sales trickle in, but then the LTV on those customers are crap because they're never going to order it from you again because it took 3 weeks to get to you. I got slapped with a charge for my postal service when it got there, and the whole experience just sucks, right? So now what I think Open Border has accomplished is removing all the friction points entirely so that you can operate in all these countries as if you were just operating normally, right? So when we started with Open Border, the first country that we started with was Australia and New Zealand, right?
Love it.
And the reason being is that their VAT charges or their tax charges is only on amounts over 1,000 AUD, right? So obviously we're well under that, so we don't have to worry about tax, right? Shipping is obviously the biggest problem here, okay? But Open Border, these guys, they're comparing costs amongst, I believe, 9 or more carriers so that you know that you're getting the best rate possible to ship out there, right?
Yep.
So now I'll give you an example. Our average shipping cost for about a $90 AOV is $12 to the US. Okay?
Oh, US. Okay, yeah.
US, yeah.
Okay, tracking.
Now to Australia and I'm giving you the fees included, duties, everything included. And so it's not just shipping
Pick
costs.
and pack, basically landed.
Yeah, all
door
in.
to door.
Door to door, $20. Okay? Now,
Not horrible. So what is that?
Not horrible. Okay? Now let me walk you through the math. That's $8 more. Okay?
Yeah.
I need to be $8 more efficient on my CAC by going into marketing in Australia for this to be worth it.
Yes.
What ends up happening is that my CAC was about 30% more efficient. So typically I see like a $50 CAC. My CAC in Australia was $35. Okay?
Yep.
So that extra $8 I'm paying in shipping, I'm saving $15 on the CAC to market in Australia. So I'm even more profitable in Australia given that the shipping cost is higher, everything else is higher, right? Now, that to me makes sense because when we started doing that, it's like, oh, I'm seeing like $20, $25, $30 CACs, and it's like, okay, let me see if I can scale this, right? Now, obviously, Australia and New Zealand together collectively isn't as big of a market as it is in the US, but it's making up substantial revenue for us. And like Darwish said, you can get up to 30, 40% of revenue, which we did, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the issue, okay? Because these markets are a little bit smaller, creatives die out way quicker. Frequency on the ads are way higher, right? So when we were running for the first 2 or 3 weeks, like I tweeted out, like our revenue from an international was 30 to 40%, like right off the bat. Now it's kind of trickling down because I need to cycle in more creative. And that's me just learning, like, okay, the nuances of running to international and what it takes to actually do it. But we just got we just ran the numbers for July. We were profitable in Australia and New Zealand. So now it's like, okay, let me allocate more resources to now, one, maybe start doing a little bit more localized landing pages. Let me start looking at Australian or New Zealand creators for UGC. Let me start, making small changes to the landing page. Now that I know I'm profitable in these countries, I can allocate a little bit more resources to make the entire experience that much better and actually scale that business up, right? And then the second part on this is I went to my B2B guys, my wholesale guys, and be like, hey, we're running ads in these countries. can you start talking to distributors? And let's start getting into some mom and pop shops there. Let's start thinking Amazon there, right? And when you go and check on Amazon, Australia, and you type in collagen, the only guy there is Vital Proteins. So it's like it's way open for us to kind of go in there and establish some type of presence there, just because Open Border allowed us to just test and actually prove out a concept, whereas before it was way too costly and really inefficient. So Darwish, thank you. Open Border, honestly, like, and then after Australia, we went into UK, right? And you just have to be that much more efficient, because you really are. All we did was we took our ads from the US and pointed them to UK, Australia. And another feature that Open Border has is, I'm really pitching this for you, is that the pricing changes, right, on our landing pages. So I don't need to change any landing pages. The price updates dynamically. It includes like the tax and everything, so that when the user gets through checkout, all they see is free shipping. And it's like, wow, like I'm getting free shipping from the US. Like I'm going to buy this right now. So that's been a huge unlock for us. Only caveat there is making sure you know your numbers. And two, making sure you have enough creative to really like scale this, because the US is way bigger than a lot of these markets, especially on Meta.
Yeah, I was just going to give some people some context. So New Zealand and Australia combined is still smaller than California by itself. Like just to give you kind of population context. But I love the idea of not only so a few things from the outside looking in. One, the arbitrage on the ads has to be there. Like if you can't acquire people at worst cover that price expansion, then it's probably not going to be a net worthwhile for you. And then the other thing is understanding how to move that stuff around is really interesting, where if you do get to an interesting place where you can internalize freight and you can get it closer to even truncate those costs even more, is really interesting to me. But yeah, that makes sense. The kind of life cycle of the ad is also really fascinating. So do you feel that, are you running essentially the same creatives? Do you think the value props are kind of ubiquitous across borders, or is there certain things that, like, for example, Aussies or New Zealanders care about more than somebody per se like in Texas or something like that? How are you thinking of that marketing at the international level?
I think for us that's step two, right? It's step one is like, let's take what we have, low lift, literally duplicate the campaign, change the country, and just let it rip.
Yes.
Step two would be like, all right, like I said, like, hey, let's get creators from there. Let's make it a little bit more native to that country, because I'm sure they come in and see like, hey, like this is an American brand, and so right off the bat, it's like there's a little bit of hesitancy. Yes. But what's really interesting is that what you start to see is like we have people trickle in to the community, right? And we start to see these new people like Australia and New Zealand. They're like, we don't get any of this in Australia. We're so happy to be here. And then you start like reaching out to those consumers and be like, hey, like you're kind of one of the first people, like the guinea pigs, like give us some feedback. Would you be down for like a customer testimonial? Can I get you on Zoom? Can I interview
That's
you?
interesting.
And then it's like, it opens up the whole playbook of what you're doing in the US, replicate it for Australia, but like really make it localized. So that's the way that I'm thinking about it. Darwish, I'm sure, like, especially at Lumen, like, you guys fucking crushed it. So maybe you have a little bit more insight there.
Yeah, I maybe can share two things that I think about that I think you guys will start to like view the world in this way. So the first one is around what do your unit economics have to be internationally versus where you are today. And I think it's really important, like when your spend levels get high enough, you think about everything in terms of incremental CAC for that dollar. So if you're spending $1 million in the US and you're to go and add another $200K in the US or another $200K internationally, which one gives you a better ROAS at that point? Because first $200K of US spend may be better than your first $200K of international spend, but like the millionth, the last $200K of that US spend is actually the most expensive usually. It's like, and that's why you usually will stop spending, because if you said I spend more, my overall CAC rises. If my overall CAC rises, it means that incremental 20% that you would have spent rose your entire base up, a lot. So that's very, very expensive stuff at scale. And so what you're really looking at is internationally, that first early entrance into a market, how does that compare against the tail of your U.S. spend? And when you start to see like that, it's sometimes actually, even if you're not getting on a blended basis the same ROAS as you're getting in the U.S., you're still getting better positive ROAS than you could get elsewhere for effort you put in. So I still find, and we ended up in this scenario at both Lumen and Meridian, where let's say the U.S. are running at like a 2.2 or 2.3 to 1 LTV CAC, we'd run international like 1.9 or 1.8, but it's still positive, and it was still incremental positive dollars for very like low amount of extra overhead time. So that's like where you kind of have to think about, is that extra 1.9? Can I find 1.9 in the U.S. from where I am today? And the answer is like, no. I'm kind of at 2.3. Like that next piece was kind of hard. It was like each thing we tried was a big lump sum drop in where we were, and so we just said, cool, we'll keep it international. So I think about incrementality a lot, and sometimes it makes you think a little bit less about apples to apples and more about, comparing apples to apples on incremental pieces of spend. So that's like one thing that I think people at least spend a lot of time thinking about. The second on the creative iteration is, I think two kind of schools of thought that I think Ashton started on one side of it, is when you're doing ad buy, you can do two things with your international ads. You can do one big campaign for all your non-US customers, shove all the English-speaking countries in there at once, and run your ads. That's like option one. Option two, and then Facebook will kind of creatively optimize and determine how much to deliver proportionate to where they think they're buyers.
Yeah.
The other option is you can do like individual country level campaigns, right? Like one for UK, one for Canada, one for New Zealand, one for Australia. And what I think over time you kind of get to get away from the cycling of creative, that speed, though in this case, actually, I think you saw it because you were doing it broken out, is over time, I think brands that can't keep up the creative pace. So in an obvious case, they may be able to, but when you can't keep up with the creative pace, you get much better efficiency, but putting it all together. And so you just do one campaign, you run all of your ads with like one non-US campaign, all of the countries there. And if you find they have different LTVs in those countries, so obviously a subscription product, they may find UK customers or Australian customers have higher repeat order rates than like, say, France. If you're in the Disruptors program or an equivalent in Facebook, you can use something called bid modifiers. So you can actually programmatically just decide to adjust your bid cap or your cost cap based on the country. So you can give a higher bid in UK, lower bid in France, higher one in Australia. And you do that all in one campaign with all the benefits that you get from campaign consolidation. So I think I found a lot of large spenders end up there over time because it's just more maintainable.
Yeah.
And I think though what's interesting is this creative iteration and like, hey, we die out of creative much faster in these smaller countries. You miss that insight when you're in one massive pool because it kind of just moves it around a bunch of small stuff, So that was a super cool insight. Actually, that was new for me. And then the last third plug is Ash, when you're ready to go to Amazon International, just let us know. We can help you with that too. So
let's go, kids. People helping people. Okay, let me say this back to you so I'm understanding it correctly. And I like to use kind of metaphors, and some in Texas we'll use like an oil metaphor. So the way I see it, and I totally agree with your thesis on diminishing returns, like at the beginning, you're usually going to get the best customers for the cheapest. And then as you expand and scale, you're going to get worse customers for more money or more expensive. So the way I look at it is almost like oil extraction, where products are essentially oil rigs, and you're putting these oil rigs all over the world. However, what happens is, and this is why you have deep sea oil rigs, this is why you have fracking, is because it becomes way harder once you tap out these proper oil fields in, Midland, Texas or whatever. You have to go find oil or resources somewhere else, and you might not be able to use those same rigs. And so what happens is you can get to these other places, but to your point, like fracking is super inefficient and really, really expensive. Like you still get some oil out of it, but if you can just go take a really awesome rig and you don't have to drill a deep sea rig somewhere crazy because you've already tapped out California and you've already tapped out all these places, you can just go to Australia and put a normal rig and you're going to get that resource extraction at way cheaper. Is that kind of the thought process around that, where you can just put these kind of oil rigs in places that are way more resource rich that haven't been tapped versus trying to just extract more and more value out of for example, the States, and then it just becomes again, that diminishing returns concept of like, okay, cool, now that we can't use oil rigs, we have to use fracking. Now that we can't use fracking, we have to build deep sea oil rigs, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm not an oil guy, but it sounded good. That sounded
okay. Okay, landed. We'll go with the Texas land.
I want to say yes. Like I think you got it. I think so. Like but yeah, like in all seriousness, yes. That is the idea. And like this thinking doesn't expand infinitely, right? It's like
sure.
Look, got to build your brand. There's still really big power. Like your ceiling is still how good your brand is, right? So if you're only a $20 million brand in the US, it's going to be very hard for you to build a $20 million brand internationally, right? If you're a $100 million brand in the US, cool. International becomes bigger. That's the power of your product, your brand, your product market fit. So you got to keep working on that no matter what. That was the thing that we kind of, to go from to become a $500 million company at Pangea, we kind of missed that idea. We didn't invest deep enough in the brands because it's so easy to just add new markets. So
yes,
you got to kind of get the combination of that right. So yeah, you can go to Australia and do the shallow drilling, but at some point, your drilling is only good as deep as you can go. So
yes,
you need the ability to go deep. But sometimes as you grow a company, it's just about it's about knowing when to go deep and when to go shallow, because you can't go deep all the time. And so if you get some quick wins along the way, it gives you air to breathe and money to work with to go do the deep things. And so that's where international can be a really nice complement in your arsenal when you're looking for wins.
No, I love that. For Ash, how are you thinking of your team? Like, is this something that you'll eventually maybe hire some local people, or people that like per se are really ingrained and hip to the UK market, or somebody that's really, because it sounds like the proof of concept is there, but then eventually kind of what Darwish is saying is like that oil well is going to dry out and you need to figure out what other ways to do that, which would be, making the marketing obviously more impactful or localized to those regions. Are you thinking about deploying, teams or resources there, or do you still think that you can have kind of a universal message that can resonate across all of your locales?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that the messaging has to be tweaked accordingly, right? I mean, just in general, like everybody's using different phrases or even slang or whatever it is, right? And so what's going to work here, like you said, the general idea, if it worked there, then if I get even more localized, it should be better, right? So the way that I'm thinking about it is two things. Is one, I already mentioned just creators from those countries, right?
Yep.
Just so that you're not constantly hearing like the American accent. Like you want to hear, the British accent. You want to hear the Australian accent. It feels more localized to you and directed to you, right?
Yeah.
Two, because there is those cultural differences, I feel like it would make sense to now hire out maybe even creative strategists from those countries.
So
this
fascinating.
way that they're the ones that are picking up on the trends. They're the ones that are kind of understanding what the needs and the wants of the people are. And then that too, maybe even digging into maybe even like within the UK, right? Let's just say like there's a specific brand of collagen that's there, right? Then being able to kind of go in and see what people are talking about, see what like maybe the negative reviews are for those products, pull out any insights that maybe we can use for marketing angles for our products, right?
Yes.
And so maybe people don't care about like fruity cereal. Like I don't even think like Fruity Pebbles is really big over there, right? So the idea of like a fruity cereal doesn't even make sense. But if we can now understand like, hey, like maybe they really like watermelon, let's start pushing watermelon instead of some of the other flavors, right?
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Asia does this really well, right? Where like you go and you see just the wackiest Doritos and chips flavors in Asia, and even in the UK and stuff like that. That's really, I didn't even think about the flavor profiles there. That's really interesting. So with that being said, now you're starting to really run a complex business because you have a lot of this inventory that is really location specific, right?
Well, here's the thing, right? These are still products that we have here anyways, right?
Yes.
Now, if you're telling me like, hey, now retail efforts are picking up there, we might get into like boots over in the UK. Then it's like, all right, well, let's see what that discussion looks like. Do they want exclusive flavors, things like that? And then
that makes sense. Okay.
Right. Then you put out
you can just sell the PO before you make it, essentially, right?
Yeah. And then you set up shop there, right? Like then you expand out there. But I think for now, for at least where we're at right now, it's just like taking what we have. Is there product market fit? yes, how do we make sure that the messaging is good? Let's do that. And then like, let's just slowly expand. And then the opportunity is there. I think for us, what opportunity looks like is typically when these B2B guys, like the wholesale guys, get inbound from those countries, and they'll start to see, hey, there's a demand here. Let's start exploring those opportunities. And then, like Darwish said, like Amazon, usually these countries are wide open and nobody's really like tossing their products in there. You go to Amazon.com right now, you search for collagen, there's hundreds of brands. Like I said, you go to Australia, Amazon, there's one or two. And so right there, for me, it feels like there's an opportunity to explore that more.
So fascinating. That's so fascinating. We've been super, super positive and I love it. But Darwish, what are some of the pitfalls of this? Like what happens, or like what should you be looking for? What's the kind of canary in the coal mine where it's like, hey, this is awesome, we tested it, but maybe we're not ready for it, or our marketing isn't where it needs to be, or something like that. Like, when do you know to maybe, put a pause or pull the plug if it isn't necessarily the best fit for your business?
Yeah, totally. So first off, I'd say when I think you got to be careful about, so marketing is one of those things you can flick on and off really easily. Operations, product, and supply chain, they work on different time intervals. So
yeah. What
we found is you got to be really careful when you start to say, hey, in these regions we have these products. In these regions we're going to store these products that are different than ones we're going to store in the U.S. That becomes a much more complex operation. It can give you more scale. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get there, but you do want to be deliberate about how you get there, right? And this is, the smaller companies don't have the DNA yet to learn how to do that. And nor should they, maybe sometimes where they are.
Sure.
So I think that's where you got to be careful about, when you take on operational complexity, that's when I start to think, hey, like, how do I dial that down? I'm actually open to taking on marketing complexity before I take on operational. I take operational complexity.
That's really well put.
Second, always in this world, because that has the cash impact. So I would say like you start with as minimal changes as possible if you're being cash conservative. Figure out where your easy wins are, and then decide where you want to go deep. When you want to go deep, you got to go deep in one place at a time, or like one or two places.
Okay.
Right? So don't go retail in Australia, UK, Canada all at once. We did that. It's not good. Like, it's too much. It's too much. Say, all right, cool. 25% of my business is non-US English at this point. I'm going to add some more lightweight, just rigging, I think, as you referred to it, just lightweight extraction from languages, and pull that from a couple countries. But I want to go in and deep in the UK. I think I can be number one or number two brand in the UK. Great. Now I'm going to do full funnel, omni-channel in the UK, and I'm going to ask myself, what does it take to win that market? That you need to kind of choose when you want to take on that mentality. But I feel like for most brands, it's going to be do that in the US, because that's your home country and that's such a big market. And then use international as like incremental win until you're at a place where you need to find that number two place where you're going to be the number one winner. Because I think sometimes to be number one, you do need to like build your brand in like a different way. And it's hard to do that in 30 different countries. Like we are all predominantly direct response businesses, so we can get direct response benefits by being in many markets quickly. That's not, you just gotta be careful. You just gotta be careful of like how you do that. Like if you want to do all the Asian flavors, like cool, just know that that's a different type of bet, and you need to go for a different type of play. Now you need to do much deeper consumer insights work, and you got to figure out where does this fit in your overall strategy in a different type of way. I don't think that's wrong. I just think it's like actually cool. You have that opportunity now. You didn't have that as an option before, right? Like weren't able to think about that. Like Ash may come out and say, you know what? Like US is too competitive for us. We're going to dominate these three countries. If we dominate them, that's it. That's our 9-figure super profitable thing. So these are the countries we're going to go after. So that's where I think you just got to be, as a brand, you got to think a little bit about what type of motion you're bringing on, but realize there's a lightweight one that can be very beneficial. So that's like maybe overarching thing I'd kind of watch out for is like operational complexity before or after marketing complexity. And the second thing I would just say is like, and I mean, I kind of said it before, but it's like the brand you build matters. It's like the ceiling of everything. That is your product market fit. Once you create and nurture that thing that works really well in one place, you can get it to work in more places oftentimes. And so you got to continuously invest in the core of who you are. And like that's the piece that I think when you grow really fast, you can let go of sometimes because it's so easy, the growth is in front of you. But it's how do you build that really solid base that your brand is known for something? And Yeti's obviously done an amazing job of that, and many brands have. And so it's just staying true to that is really important when you find easy scale, because sometimes international will be easy.
No, I'm totally tracking. No, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, Melwani, I'd be remiss to not ask you, can we get an update on the cost cap gate?
Yeah, of course. So I had a ton of people like reach out to me and be like, yo, this is not gonna last. It's not gonna, you guys are running so much lowest cost for the longest time. Like, this is like, I've went back and like, I've spent $600,000 with this account right now. And that's all through cost cap.
Not nothing.
Right? It's not nothing. It's not just hitting a warm audience, right? Yes, you're gonna have days that are full blown volume days, but then you're gonna have days that are slow, right? And I'm okay with that. And here's the caveat: I need to be extremely profitable for the next 45 days until Big Daddy Walmart deposits that money into the bank account.
Let's go.
And then I can now be free to now spend a little bit more money on marketing, right?
Yeah.
So for the brands that are like in this position where like, hey, efficiency, it may be an option. It's not for everybody, but right now it's what I need to do for my business, given that I have these retail efforts that are happening and I need to be extremely profitable so that I can spend money now to help support Walmart until we have enough to now allocate money towards Walmart in itself. So I'm happy with it. Yes, there are days where I want to like bang my head against the wall because of low volume, but
yes,
the bigger picture here, guys. So
the bigger picture.
That's where I'm at. I'd be happy to go back to spending $20K a day, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is that it's a safety net. If Facebook just like, if you got no customers that are at your target CPA, fine, that's fine.
Yes.
I'll run a promo that day, get some revenue in from customers. That's fine, right?
Yes.
We have subscription revenue coming in every day.
Yes.
We're fine. Now, when you hit those days where it's like, back to school, people are now shopping, and you got the volume hitting, it'll hit. So
yes,
that I'm okay with that.
I don't know this. Is Ash a hard cap, cost cap guy? Is that
I guess if nobody listened to the last episode, Ash, give us your setup while we wrap this up, because I know we're like 4 minutes away from it, so I want to make sure we're cognizant of everybody's time. But give us the kind of real quick, and then Darwish, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved everything over to cost caps.
You started a new account as well.
Yeah, so I started a new ad account, new pixel, new Facebook page. Long story short, for the last year, right? We were only able to hit a certain KPI for a return, and anything I did was not breaking past it, right? And I tested thousands of ads, landing pages, offers, everything. Okay. Spoke to a few guys, and it's like, hey, did you have like a big event happen? Like, did something change within the business fundamentally? And the biggest change is that we stopped whitelisting with this massive influencer, right? Who was driving like the most obscene amount of traffic to our website, right?
Yeah.
Facebook optimized for that audience. It was constantly circling that audience no matter what we did, and it just wasn't our target market. Spoke to a few guys who went through the same thing. They said, change out pixel, ad account, this and that. Try to remove any history of that type of audience and start over. And we just were a lot more efficient with like the same ads. And I was like, this is just an ad account problem. This is a pixel problem. And then on top of that, the goal for the company for June, July, and now August is I need to be extremely, extremely profitable and as efficient as possible so that we can support the Walmart launch. And so I was like, all right, some of these guys are just going all in on cost caps. The theory here is that you spend when you can, you don't spend when it can't. And if I can just be efficient in those days, great, then I'm happy, and I'm putting money into the bank account to unleash for Walmart. So that's been the thesis for the last 60 days, and I'm happy about it.
What do you think, Darwish? Is this guy crazy? Has he bought into is he drinking the cost control Kool-Aid? What's happening? What's your take?
My original reaction was different than my end reaction, but my original reaction was, dang, maybe I should be running 50-50 on my site. Like I have 50% of my impressions come through one, or 50% of like my states or something come through one pixel and the other set come through another pixel.
Yeah.
And I just see if I can grab different types of demographics. I've heard some similar stuff for people like with Facebook pages, where people will create multiple Facebook pages for their brand to run their ads through.
Yeah.
And each page kind of grabs a different demo, and so they switch that up. So I've heard like, it always like these weird threads that you hear that are kind of interesting from people that are kind of doing something kind of good, and like, okay, maybe I should like try it too, just because you always want to try if you hear something like that. It resonates with me on the fact that I wonder if he is getting pigeonholed into something he can't get out of it. I'd be curious to see if at scale, so it sounds like you guys reduced a little bit in scale, if when you get back to that scale, you end up finding that same audience again, that was just the tip of where you are, or you find a new group. I don't know, but I like the new Pixel. I'm a little skeptical of the aggressive cost cap, but the new Pixel thing I think it's a little radical, but if at some point you gotta have the guts to do it, and so kudos to you to having it. I think I'd be so scared, and every Facebook rep I ever know would be outside this door right now.
Yeah, it's just
what are you
knocking
doing?
it down the.
I'm a little scared to even say those words out loud in front of people who know me. But I think it's actually an interesting concept. I think you can listen up the cost cap a bit. That's more a profitability thing, but the new audience thing is actually really interesting, and then maybe you could measure. I wonder if you could go do some sort of measurement on your audience by zip code or demographic or psychographic.
100%.
See a pre-post, and I wonder if you would see, on a objectively subjective basis, you're actually getting a different type of customer. That'd be if I saw those numbers, you'd want me over 100%. I'm like 65 right now.
Yeah, 100%. I'll give you 100% that study needs to be done, right? Secondly, the qualitative differences that we've seen is that the comments are a little bit more intelligent than they were before. Like, people are asking the right questions. You see the
line this guy walked? Oh my gosh. Pure professional over here.
Two, again, this is very this is the one-off story, right? Is our bookkeeper, right? We use a third-party bookkeeper. She is in the market. She uses Vital Proteins. She's like, I've never once seen an Avi ad, right? And I'm like, yeah, maybe you're just not in the demo. Maybe you're just not there. She'd been to the website. She's just not getting hit with an ad. Okay. The minute we changed everything over, she's like, I just started seeing Avi ads. And I was like, interesting. Am I now hitting the right person? Again, this is a one-off story. But I'm wondering if that's just happening more and more often. And the other thing is that the community, even though we're spending less, the community is growing faster.
That's
so
a fascinating heuristic.
That was the biggest difference that we also saw, was there's just more take rate in entering the community, because I think it's the right people.
I'm gonna go talk to some people now. Dang, we have same problem with Lumen, and this is my last thing. We had a similar problem with our skincare brand Lumen, and I'm still on the board of the company, still help out a lot. But we're a free trial model, and a free trial model, I think, over incentivizes you to get these low quality customers.
So well put. The group honors.
So hard
that
to
would
break
do it
out of that
would do it
customer. And now I wonder if we just say, that's it, we're out. Forget all this. Nuke the Pixel.
Nuke it.
Go all in and
Darwish, I would bet a board seat on Avi if you switched out shit, that you would actually see a major difference. And the biggest thing here is the Facebook page, because the Facebook page is what contains that warm audience, right? The engagers and everything. We had to nuke that too. And so all the old ads, everything full stop, not promoting anything on it. That's why we made Avi Health. So people who are bugging me, hey, I don't see ads in your ad account. It's Avi Health. Go look at the ad library. It's Avi Health. That got rid of a full stop of the warm audience that we just been circling, and just forced it to hit new people. So
what an interesting,
same ads, same everything.
Interesting.
And it changed.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's low-key brilliant. I love it. And to your point, Darwish, I think it's an incredible risk to take on, and to be able to sell it up the chain to Ron, just get it done, and to be able to produce the results.
But the way
kudos
that
to you,
I did
Ash.
it, the way that I did it is I set up an entirely different Shopify environment. So like I just put my landing page up on another Shopify account, new domain, and just ran it separately as if it was a different brand. And that's
So
where we
interesting.
were tracked. That's how I got as close to possible as proving it out
Yes.
without having to like intertwine or anything like that. So
Blow everything up. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So fascinating. Dude, this has been incredible. Go check out Open Borders. Darwish, how do they get connected with you? How can they get on Open Borders? Let the people know.
Yeah, OpenBorder.com. You can check us out there, or you can hit me up on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I will forward you to the right person that can help out on our side.
Amazing. Go start printing those euros, sterling pounds. What is it? The Australian dollar, whatever you need. Go get that. I just looked at the conversion rate. I'm moving to Australia. Dude, it's like Canada. I can instantly be rich. Give me that. Speaking of rich, powerful Sam Walton, an incredible Made in America biography. So I'm just sitting there in my self-driving Uber, riding around Austin, Uber Black, Avi. And then I look up and I just see the bright lights of a vitamin shop on my left. However, to my right is the beautiful blue of Walmart. What do I do, Ash? This is like Bjordan's donkey. This is this philosophical conundrum. How do I solve it?
you drive right on past vitamin shop.
Oh, no.
Because the new collagen, what we're calling more than collagen, is now officially on a good amount of the shelves of Walmart.
Amazing.
A week early, which is interesting. Nobody told us. A week early. So definitely head on in there. Please head on in there. New formula, new packaging, everything, better pricing. So we are now officially in Walmart.
Man, what a story, and a lot of kind of cool offline conversations that me and you've had, and I know it's been an absolute labor of love and all the roadblocks, but man, just really awesome to see what you and Ron have been able to do over there. So go get you some Avi protein at Walmart. Go hire Ash on MentorPass. Go book some of his time. He's one of just the killers of killers. And then also go check out his podcast, Chew on This. It's been really fun to watch you guys see that production value is great. The guests have been top floor. And then Harley is on the docket, right? Or you already recorded?
Recorded season finale, so that should be end of September, beginning of October.
What a wonderful human. That guy. He's my muse. He's just such a wonderful human. Okay, if you want to get more involved in Triple Whale, we are at triplewhale.com. You can actually ride the Lightning for free. We have the Founders Dash. You can go check that out. You get the awesome mobile app, a widget, 12-month look back. You get all the goodness. And then if you do want more, you can easily upgrade. We also have a fantastic newsletter. It goes out every Tuesday and Thursday called Whale Mail. You can subscribe right at triplewhale.com/whalemail. And then if you actually prefer your podcasts in video form and you want to see Ash Malwani's drip, because he always comes with it, you can go to youtube.com/triplewhale. What else we need? We go leave a review, subscribe to the channel. We love all of you folks. And then ping us if you want to talk to anybody or guests, topics, whatever you want. The show is for you. We are people of the people, show for the people. Malwani, Darwish, this has been great. Thank you so much, Darwish, for making the time. I appreciate the flexibility in the scheduling, guys. And it's another ad spin in the books. We'll see you on the flip. Bye-bye.